Hi, it's Christine Daigle.
I'm Jena Brown.
I'm Kevin Tumlinson.
And I'm JD Barker. Welcome to Writers Inc. So I am remote, so I probably sound weird. I am at the Writers Digest conference in Baltimore, Maryland, which I thought was going to be a fun drive. It was like a 10-hour drive from my house, but it routed me through like the middle of New York City. And like I
Oh,
don't know if that was like an like a glitch or what, but that added like 2 hours to like the whole
Maybe
trip.
maybe your phone just wanted to take a little tour, see the Big
Yeah.
Maybe.
Apple.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a way to get to Baltimore from New Hampshire though without having to pass through New York. Like, I don't know.
you would
I
think
should have probably
so.
looked at a map.
Yeah.
And then I'm driving, and like everybody's dying. Ozzy died. I just heard like a couple minutes of
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan just died.
What?
Oh, I didn't hear
Yeah.
that.
I didn't
Yeah.
hear
Yeah,
that either.
ex
I know that Theo Huxtable died.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
childhood is
yeah.
just dying
Theo died. He
slowly.
was, I guess, swimming. He was
Yeah.
swimming in Costa Rica, and I guess the current
Depressing.
got him. I
Yeah.
don't know what happened to
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan, but he was only 71.
I had
So
no
not really.
idea.
Yeah,
That's
he
my
just
mom's age, by the
passed.
way. 71. She
Wow.
just turned 71 like
It's
4 days
creepy,
ago.
right? Like, I remember you go back 20 years ago or whatever, people would die and like, they were all older people. Like you didn't think twice about it. Then all of a sudden something changes and it's like people that are, like you recognize the names. And now all of a sudden there are people that are dying that are like, the ages of other people that you know. And yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like getting old, man. We got to turn this off,
Yeah.
shut
Yeah.
this down.
Stop the ride.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I cannot believe I didn't hear about Hulk Hogan.
It
I
just
can't.
happened as we're recording this. So, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was it was like
Oh,
within the last hour or so.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
And
dang.
and then I saw a video on something from Sharon Osbourne, basically stating that she is not going to die just because Ozzy did. Because like there
I
were all these
believe her.
there were all these rumors that she was gonna end it as soon as Ozzy was gone so that they could go out hand in hand. And I,
Oh,
I guess she got cold feet at the last minute there.
Wow.
Crazy week.
Wow.
yeah, it's a
Okay.
crazy week.
It always happens like this. Comes in threes. That's what they always say. These
Well,
celebrity deaths and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
enough.
ah,
All right, Kevin, what is in the news? Make it happy news.
oh my gosh, you guys caught me with my pants down here. Hold on. I absolutely am not prepared to read the news yet. Sorry.
I can
Hold
give you my
on.
Tony Iommi TED Talk
Well,
while you
put
No,
your
find
I
it
pants
got
if
back
you
it.
on and
want.
find the
I
news.
got it. I've got it.
Okay,
I
perfect.
The whole
We'll do
talk
that
with
later.
Joe threw me off. So sorry, Alex. Okay. All right. Well, in the news, Gone Before Goodbye, Reese Witherspoon is co-authoring her first thriller with longtime bestseller Harlan Coben. The partnership blends Witherspoon's brand production savvy and audience reach, including Reese's book club, with Coben's decades of experience as a successful author. Published by Grand Central and imprint of Hachette, the project is a strategic, high profile collaboration likely designed for multimedia potential from day one, including books, screen, and global marketing. Gone Before Goodbye.
This is crazy smart. And like I took a step back, because I've had a bunch of conversations with Patterson about this kind of thing. And like this is the reason that he wrote a book with Dolly Parton. Like Patterson
Yeah,
did that because he knew it would expand his audience into a group that, probably didn't read him. Now he's writing a book with Mr. Beast, who's the #1 YouTube star. So that's
yeah,
going to rope in a bunch of people from that. So if you take a step back and look at this from a business standpoint, this is so smart, because like Reese has the book club. She's got all the contacts. She's got her own production company to get something filmed. I meant to see if any of Harlan's books had ever shown up on her book club, like recommended list, like if she had ever, flagged one of them. And I didn't have time to do that, so I'm not sure. But this is just as much a strategic partnership as it is a writing endeavor.
I don't
yeah,
know if she has. I know that when she first started her book club got started because her production company um got started by basically partnering with literary houses and getting a bunch of arcs, and they focused largely on female centric stories in the very, very beginning. I think she's expanded now, but she was one of the first. And I just remember this because it was like she had talked about it, and I thought it was so interesting that she wanted to do a different approach, when it came to making movies, and everyone sort of had like the same things. And so she went and got a bunch of she had like her assistant or someone go to all the major publishing houses and say, these are the stories we're looking for. What do you have? And read the books when they were still arcs. And
Yeah.
I think Wild was one of the first movies she
Yeah.
did that. So she sort of like saw the value in the literary side, I guess, in a different way than other people did. So it's very interesting, I think. She's an interesting person.
Has she
Yeah.
ever written anything before?
I don't think so.
I don't
No.
think so. I just looked it up. Harlan Coben has never been a Reese's book club pick.
Yeah,
So there you
I
go.
don't think so. Yeah.
Well, that's a hell of a way to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
All
So
right.
fascinating.
Next up, Hawley and Blumenthal introduce AI Protection Act. Senators Josh Hawley and Richard Blumenthal introduced the AI Accountability and Personal Data Protection Act, which would bar AI companies from training on or spitting out copyright protected material without permission, covering both inputs and outputs of generative models. The administration's new 23-page AI action plan mentions, quote, security risks to American IP, but offers no concrete copyright safeguards. AAP President Mariah Palante welcomed the Senate bill and said publishers are negotiating responsible licensing deals with AI developers, but warned that loosening copyright, as some tech voices suggest, would harm authors in the U.S.'s creative leadership.
Well, it's cute that they're trying, but
Yeah.
Did you see that country that is like letting people copyright their faces? Is like Denmark or
What?
Sweden or somewhere? Yeah, like so now you can or trademark they're doing something where it's like you can like now legally own your face.
Okay.
Well, I wonder. Yeah, I mean, like this is going to keep going. Like, can you legally own or trademark your DNA? Like, can you protect that in some way? Like, there's so many implications here.
At least your DNA is entirely unique. You
That's
could
true.
own that because it can't be replicated without replicating you. But I can
But
look
there's no
like
law
someone else.
saying that, is there? I mean, I guess
But
that's where it kind of gets interesting is like,
Yeah.
is there anything preventing somebody from replicating somebody else's DNA? If some company steps in and says, "We want to recreate Elvis," is there
Yeah.
anything that's prohibiting them from doing that? I don't think there is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Not that that has
I don't
anything to do with copyright. I mean, going back to what the actual story is about.
Well, I mean, there could be things along the lines of, when you start looking into like HIPAA and other things, and that's all in the US, but, there are protections against certain aspects of, for example, there was that whole Henrietta, whatever her name was, she was a black woman, and they actually took her genes and
yeah.
used them to
Oh,
do a
yeah.
whole bunch of testing and other things. And so there's been, if I'm remembering correctly, I have done no research into this, but if I'm remembering correctly, they actually did pass some laws and things that created penalties for that sort of thing because it was dishonoring her by doing all this without her permission, basically.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, the biggest problem you've got here is this is a global issue, So like our government can come up with whatever solution they want. The Canadian government can, a government in the Ukraine can come up with something different. They'll
yeah,
just go to some little island somewhere that's not governed by any of that and do whatever they want. And
Yes.
that's if they even bother to go that far, because apparently nobody is listening to any of this stuff. They're
I
going
don't
to
know.
do
Is
what they
China a
want.
little island though?
That's a
Because that's
bigger
where
Oh,
that's
island.
happening.
but yeah, the face copyright is fascinating because like you're right, Kevin, people do have, that twin. So you're going to copyright
Right,
your face and someone that looks just like you then can't copyright their face. I don't know.
right. Exactly right. It's kind of the same problem as what they have in Hollywood with names, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if I look a little bit like a celebrity, and that celebrity copyrights his face, can I now not become a celebrity because I have a
No.
face very similar?
No, you
That
can't.
I'm not becoming a celebrity for a whole host of other reasons, but now I can't because of how handsome I am, which is unfair to the
It is
handsome.
unfair. I
Yeah,
agree.
that's handsome discrimination, and I won't stand for it. Speaking of handsome discrimination, audiobook walk-in clubs take reading outside. Sorry, I had to skip ahead. Okay, audiobook walk-in clubs are popping up nationwide. Bookstagrammers, indie bookstores, silent book club chapters, and Libro FM are organizing, quote, listen and stroll meetups where readers walk, listen, or chat, then swap recs after. Here is the format. Queue up the audiobook, walk an easy route, pause to talk, or just enjoy the quiet. Gatherings end with casual hangouts, swaps, or bookstore visits. Like, think silent disco, but for audiobooks. Libro FM is fueling growth with toolkits, promo templates, and free credits, while groups like Book It Around in DC eye franchises in other cities, making solitary listening a low-pressure, inclusive community event. I am 1,000% on
I love a
board
good
with this
audiobook on a
idea.
walk.
This is so fun. I want to listen to more stuff, and I want to
and the
walk
communal
more.
nature of it.
I
That's
don't know if I
fun.
want to interact with more people, but maybe I could get there.
Well, okay.
But
I
guess
love the
it's
idea.
optional,
Go ahead,
right?
Jenna.
Well, 'cause it's
Yeah.
optional. Like, because you're all just listening to books, so like you can pause, but like you don't have to.
Yeah.
It's what do they call it? They call it with cat co-bonding. They say like cats, they like to be in the same room with you, but
Yes.
not participating. And I appreciate that. I like being in the same room as other people, just not necessarily engaging with them.
Yes, my
Yeah,
cat and
this
I
is-
co-bond all the time. She sits on the arm
Yep.
of my armchair and totally ignores me. Just wants to
Yep.
be there. I
This
appreciate
is
it.
I get it.
I go to coffee shops and things like that every now and then to write for the day because it changes my environment. But
Yeah.
I don't want to interact with any of these people. I want to drink my coffee, write my books, destroy the world, whatever it is I'm doing on the page.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Although I'm more likely to want to interact with book people. I like book people than
I
just
do
like
like people too. Yeah.
I
nebulous
like the
people.
book people who are holding up fistfuls of money for me. That's the book people I love.
Wow. That's a very specific person, Kevin.
I love
Oh.
those people.
We've got something weird going on out at Wood Island. People are coming out there and reading something I keep upstairs while they're actually on the island. And people are sitting out there like on the dock listening to the
Yeah.
audiobook while
That's
they're
so
on
cool.
When you
Cool.
when you told us that story, man, I thought that of all the things you've accomplished, JD, that's the only one I think that means you've made it.
Yeah.
Is that you've got a whole island full of people, and I'm just kidding about that. You're phenomenal, but you know you've got a whole town or a whole region that's paying to go out and hang out on this island just on the off chance that something you wrote in that book might show up. That's
My
the
favorite
dream.
is that
Cool.
people are trying to break into the basement. Don't try to
Peop-
break into the basement, but
Yeah,
I do
people-
love that they are.
They need to leverage that. They need to turn that into an opportunity because if they put a specialized event in that basement that you can only get into at certain times of year or whatever. And
Well,
so
the problem is that in the book, they go down in the basement and they bury trinkets from people that have died to try and, create this
Yeah.
haunted environment. So people that are trying to get into the real basement are trying to get down there to bury stuff from
bury
people that
stuff.
have died.
Yeah.
So that is not something they want to encourage.
they need to
Right.
No.
find a little square of land on the island somewhere, call it the plot cemetery, and let them go bury their tiny little trinkets there. And then they come along with a metal detector afterward, dig it all up, take it. So
There you go.
There's a lot of interesting possibilities that you guys can take.
But yeah, no, I
It's
think you
so
need an
fascinating.
audiobook. Yeah, I think you need an audiobook club on that island now.
Mhm.
Well, people are just doing it, because they're selling the books on the island. They're selling, like, we've got ghost tours here in Portsmouth, and like in the stores that actually host the tours, they're selling the book. So people are either going out to the island and hearing about the book for the first time and then buying it on their way back, or they're
Yeah.
buying the book, on their way there. But like a lot of people are taking return trips because they finish up the book and they want to see the island, from that perspective, because it's very different after you've read the book. But yeah, it's cool. But like they sent me some pictures of people just hanging out on the dock, just listening to the audiobook on headphones, like just literally just sitting out there for, hours and hours at a time, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
Very
Yep. Hey, this is Kevin Tumlinson, and it seems to me like you might need a little help. Maybe hand off all that stuff that's keeping you from writing. At Author Anchor, we connect authors with skilled, affordable virtual assistants trained specifically for the publishing world. Your personal VA handles everything from book production to marketing and social media, freeing you up to focus on what matters most, your writing. Book a discovery call today and we'll find that perfect VA for you. Plus, mention the Writers Inc. podcast and you'll get $50 off your first month. visit authoranchor.com and get matched with your personal VA so you can just write.
All right. I guess with that, I should ask JD, who is up this week?
Speaking of cool, this week we've got JT Ellison back on. She's a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of more than 30 psychological thrillers. She's also the Emmy Award-winning co-host of A Word on Words, which airs on PBS. Her latest novel is called Last Scene and releases August 1st. Here she is, JT Ellison.
Well, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here. It's great to see you.
Yeah, you too. You've had quite the year, new book. So
Yep.
yeah, I know last time we started with how you got your start. So this time I thought we'd kick it off a little bit differently, and talk about how your writing process has changed from the beginning to now. How has that evolved?
That's a really good question because, gosh, I'm 22 years into this now. 23
Wow,
years. This book, Last Scene, is my 33rd novel.
that's so cool.
Yeah. So things have changed from the
Mhm.
beginning. I mean, the biggest is probably the time that I'm able to spend writing because
Yeah,
I was in a vacuum back then. We didn't have all the social media. We didn't have the distractions. We didn't have the performative aspect of things.
right.
Suddenly I was just a writer. Now I'm a writer and a producer and an actor and a videographer and a photographer and a marketing consultant. You didn't have
Right, yeah.
to do any of that back then. So I think I spent a lot more time focused on just the work.
Hmm.
And I've never really been a huge outliner. I'm a pantser, but the more I do this, especially with standalones, you have to outline. You have to have at least a framework of what the story is going to be. So that's probably the second biggest change. The first is time, and the second is learning how to create a structure around the story so that it's a little more meaty when I come to actually write the book.
Yeah. And I guess that also kind of comes with the more you write, uh, the more intuitive, I suppose, that framework becomes, where it's sort of like a down and dirty fast draft when you outline. Is that kind of how you look at it, or is it very structured?
No, it's not very structured. Not even close. I do 40 scenes, right? So if I have 40 scenes, and a scene it can be a snippet of dialogue, it can be a setting, it can be, the bookcase or the beach or whatever visual that I have.
Hmm.
It can be whatever it is to do with the book. Once I have 40 of those, then I'm allowed to start writing. Because then I've got an idea. I've written a
Yeah.
synopsis for the publisher, so I have a general idea of what the book is. Nobody ever holds you to that, which is wonderful because they morph, right? They change. They're
Yeah.
living creatures and they change as you work with them. Um, but it's I don't know. I have a really hard time with the whole concept of first this happens, then this happens, then this, then this, then this. So I write out of order, and the 40 scenes lets me do that. It lets me go wherever I need to be in the story, write the scene. Now, it means there's a lot of rewriting
Yeah.
because, I'll forget something or, oh, wait, this happens. Now I have to go back and do all of this. It's not incredibly efficient.
Well,
Not incredibly efficient.
I
And
mean,
that's
33
I'm
novels.
less efficient than I was back at the beginning. Way
Yeah.
less efficient.
Oh, wow. So was it just you were kind of writing like more on instinct when you first
Mhm.
started?
Completely. Completely on instinct. I was a creative writing major, but it was not a crime fiction. I mean, I was writing
Right.
poetry. So
Right.
everything that I've learned as far as, writing, I've taught myself. And yeah, it was completely instinctual and it was series. So the world was already built.
Mhm.
You did the world building up front, and then you have your characters, and then it's just a function of inserting the plot and how does that put pressure on the character.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Series, I feel like series are one of those things where they can seem like really daunting on one hand, but also like a little, I don't know if luxurious is the right word, but sort of like luxurious on the other hand.
I like that word because I think that's a really good representation of it's not easier, and I'm using little quotes. It's
Yeah.
not easier, but the framework is already there, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you start a new story.
Yeah, and your readers sort of kind of give you a little bit of leeway, I'm assuming too, just because they already kind of know how to fill in some of those blanks that
Sure.
a standalone wouldn't.
Correct. And
Yeah.
the standalone, everybody's on the chopping block. Anyone can die. Your main character can die in a series.
Yeah.
So, if you have a franchise character, chances are they're going to survive. So
Hmm.
it has its own set of constraints too, because you have to figure out how you're going to put this together in a way that's, really exciting that people can come into it at, book 3, 4, 5 and still want to be a part of things. It has its own challenges for sure.
Yeah. So, you kind of talked a little bit about how that's changed. And I think you touched on this, but how has publishing not just changed your process, but even the expectation on writers? Like now you have all this social media that you have to do, and how, I think there's like a little bit of a misconception for new writers, like, oh, well, once I get a traditional publishing deal and I have a marketing team, like I don't have to do that. Do you find that's true, or how has that also changed over the years?
I think you get out what you put in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I mean, now there are certainly contracts that stipulate that you have to do a certain amount of social media and all of that. Um, that's not necessarily required, though. It's very hard to launch a book without social media. And that's a huge change as well. It used to be, that was nobody was buying books from social media. You couldn't sell a book on social media. We spent a good 10 years in
Yeah.
that environment. So it was what were we doing, right? What
Mm-hmm.
was the point? Now it's much more purposeful. Now it is to raise awareness and to reach influencers and to create a new paradigm in the PR and marketing. Uh,
Yeah.
and the ads and it has changed dramatically even in the past couple of years I think
Yeah. I know, just with all the shifting apps and stuff. Do you think that I'm just kind of curious because you've seen sort of that shift happen, and been able to maintain, the momentum in your career. Do you think, it is better to sort of have more of those outlets, for authors, or is it harder? What do you think about how does that play out?
having multiple outlets is really hard because two things. One, the algorithm does not reward you for copying and pasting the same post on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. They
Yeah,
know, right? Even though they're completely siloed ecosystems, they know if you're repeating stuff over.
they do.
They do. So to come up with creative content for all of the different platforms, something different for Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and Threads and Blue Sky, that way lies madness, right? You
Yeah.
have to just pick one that you really want to focus on and focus on that. And the interesting thing, the exodus off of Twitter X,
Yeah.
when it changed, when it altered its personality, um, that has I think that was kind of the moment when people just went to their own corners,
Hmm.
and that's where they're living now. And you don't have to be everywhere anymore.
Yeah.
I have a Substack. I went to Substack. That's where I went and focused my effort because, as I mentioned, I am not a videographer and an actress and everything, but I
Yeah.
am a
Right. Yeah.
writer. So I've kind of channeled over the past year and a half, I've channeled all of my energy into the writing aspect of social media. A
Hmm.
little more long form, a little more chit chatty, but not the pithy, blithe, I'm putting down 140 characters and moving out the door and hoping that goes viral. Um, and I feel like I'm in way more control now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's easier, it's harder, but I'm not trying to be all things to all people, which I
Yeah,
think is really incredibly difficult, and it's not fair for anyone to expect that of an author. I mean, we're introverts. We are
right.
there
Yeah.
are plenty, I mean, there are plenty that aren't introverts, but some of us are really genuinely we just want to hang out and write our books and read our books and talk to our friends. And the idea of having to be out there is really difficult to pull back the curtain and let
Mhm.
people see into our lives because you notice there aren't a lot of TV shows, reality shows about writers
There
because
are not.
it's
Yeah.
boring and we're always in our head, right?
Yeah.
It is really interesting. And I feel like the publishers have finally kind of grasped, hey, it's better for you to go write a great book. When I die, I don't necessarily want people to look back and say, wow, Thriller Chick had an amazing Instagram. I
Right.
want I want them to go, wow, that book that she wrote really touched me or moved me in some way. So I try to
Yeah.
hold the social media part of this lightly. I haven't in the past. I've had assistants and it's been very structured and we have to do this. And now the pandemic fixed that for me. Now I'm just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Hey, I forgot to post this week. Okay. It's
Yeah.
helped a lot to
I
hold it a
I
little bit
noticed the
light.
pandemic did that with a lot of people. I feel like people either leaned into it or sort of were okay with letting it go a little bit. So I
Yeah.
think it's probably a good thing. Like lean into your strengths.
Lean into your strengths. And I mean, I've got plenty of author friends. Oh my gosh, Geneva Rose, perfect example of somebody who leaned in. I mean, she tried to talk me into going to TikTok early on, and I was like, no, I can't do that. It's too fast. It literally gives me a horrible headache. Just all of the flashing
Yeah.
really upsets my brain. So I can't do it, physically can't do it. And I watch her, she is just perfection. She's funny, she's adorable, she's got a huge outsized personality. She is
Mhm.
meant for this. And that's why she's having so much success.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, am not that. And by trying to be that, you have to be true to yourself, right?
Right.
That's,
Yeah.
you know, it's way
I think
more
that's
important to be true to yourself.
probably a relief for a lot of writers out there to hear for sure.
You
Um,
don't have to do things that make you uncomfortable. There
right.
are no rules that say you hate something, don't do it.
Publishing police will not come for you.
No, they will not. They will not.
Um, one of the hats that you do wear is an Emmy Award winning host of a show, A Word on Words.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought that was so cool. And I wanted to know how that all started and came about. How did you find yourself on a TV show?
How did the introvert find herself on a
Yes,
team? Yeah.
perfect shift.
So obviously interviewing writers is the only way a TV show works in the publishing world. Um, so John Siegenthaler was the host of A Word on Words here in Nashville for 40 years.
Hmm.
Every Sunday morning, he had on an author who he interviewed for 30 minutes. I was on the show 6 times over the course of my
That's so
career
cool.
before John passed away. And it was horrible. He and I had a lovely connection. He connected with everyone because he read their books and
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
intimately familiar with the stories. He was my first ever interview.
Oh,
My
that's so
very first
cool.
interview ever in my entire publishing career was, I mean, my first interview ever was with John on the show.
Hmm.
And you can see, the video is hysterical. You can see I'm terrified. So they came to me and said, "Hey, we want to keep the show going. We want to change how we're going to do it. It's not going to be a 30-minute in studio. It's going to be a different iteration, but we'd like you to host." And I was like, "No, absolutely not." And
Right.
they're like, "No, no, no, seriously." And I'm like, "No, seriously, no." And they talked me into going in and doing a screen test, and it went really well. And they offered me the gig, and so I, I took it. Sometimes you got to do things you're afraid of to
Yeah.
grow as a person. Um, yeah, I've terrible, terrible fear of public speaking and cameras. It's one thing to be interviewed, but to do the interviewing, the pressure is very different. But we just wrapped our 10th season. And now it's like a no-brainer. I read the book, I go and talk to a fabulous author. I get excited about going to the studio. It's really fun.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different aspect of the writing, and I learned so much from talking to other writers about their process and their storytelling and how they approach the page, and it's a lot of fun. I'm sure you enjoy this part of it too, right?
I
Getting
do.
to getting to
Yeah.
talk to people and be like, "Oh wow, so this is how you do it." Well, that's interesting. It's really, it's really, really cool.
Yeah, I do. I sometimes think what I don't I actually think the exact opposite of you. I think the idea of someone interviewing me is terrifying.
Really.
Yeah.
It's like
I don't know
panels. I will
why.
sit on a panel. I'm perfectly content to be on a panel, have me moderate it, and literally I'll end up getting sick before because I get so stressed out about it. I don't
Wow.
like being the
Yeah.
center of attention.
I guess I kind of feel like being the interviewee is a little bit like that for me. Like it's a little bit, I guess I feel a little bit of distance on this side of the microphone, as it were,
And
versus
I'm the exact opposite. You have the hard job. I've got the easy job.
so fascinating. I love how that works, how that comes about. Why
So the
you?
show is actually a podcast as well. After
Oh, very
I've been
cool.
I've been saying, for years, because we do a big long interview. We do a 20,
Mhm.
25, 30-minute interview, but we only use 3 minutes of footage. And so now you can actually listen to the full interviews on the Word on Words podcast. So
Oh,
you can see the short show on the TV, and you can listen to the podcast as well.
that's incredible. Yeah, I do feel like I love having both those forms. I think it's a really good balance to have like a longer and a shorter because some people really like the long form, other people just want to have like those little snappy. Well, I do want to talk about your new book because is that a doozy? Last that was a wild ride. Um, where did this idea come from?
Oh my gosh. So we're talking about Last Scene, which is
Hmm.
coming soon. Um, the I had this dream. I had a crazy, crazy dream about a writer's retreat in a town called Brockville. And I could see the town, I could see the mountain and the funicular and the village, and it was right there on the water, so there were boats, and I mean it just had a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And the problem was the story was a romance, which was kind of bizarre. So I wrote the whole thing down, and I pitched it to my agent,
Hmm.
who got really, 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 really quiet, which is never a good sign.
Right.
And I'm a terrible pitcher anyway. I mean, I'm not great at it. So I pitched the whole thing to her. She's dead silent. She had been on vacation the week before. And she said, "Did I tell you that I was in a town called Brockville last week?"
Oh, no
What?
way.
There's a real Brockville? So there's a real Brockville. It's in Canada. She was up
Wow.
there. She had dropped her phone in the lake and had to go find a phone, and the nearest town was Brockville. So that was really, really bizarre because I think she was in Brockville the night I had the dream. So
That's
she gave me that part. Mhm.
crazy.
And we both agreed writing it as a romance was probably not the best idea. I was saying it was Stepford Wives meets Under the Tuscan Sun. And she was like, "That's great, but you are JT Ellison and you write thrillers, you don't write romance." I'm like, "That's right." So I put the idea away, and I had just done a new deal with my publisher. Well, I was in the midst of doing a new deal with my new publisher. It was my first deal. And they wanted two books. The first one was Very Bad Thing, which came out
Mhm.
last year. And that one was already, pretty much written when I sold it to them. But they needed a second book, and I needed an idea, and Brockville was fleshiest of the ideas. I have a lot of
Mhm.
ideas, but it was the fleshiest. So I sat down on my porch with my literally dying cat in my lap, and this
Mm.
whole story just poured out. And I titled it Her Last Night because it was her last night, and we
Yeah.
knew that. We knew that we had to take her the next day and help her over the rainbow, which was awful. So I'm writing this proposal with this cat in my lap, trying to come up with something that's going to be worth the publisher buying.
Yeah.
I really feel like she gave me the story. I really feel like Jameson gave me that story. And I wrote the whole thing up. They loved it. And when I came back to it, a year later, getting ready to write the book, it was all there. I pulled on everything that I had from the synopsis and the dream and everything. And it got real dark because I was in a place of bereavement when I wrote this book.
Yeah.
I was really grieving a lot of things. And because, losing a cat is hard. Losing
Oh,
any pet is hard, but she was a warrior. She was a little warrior cat. She was much too young. But yeah, that's so the book got a little bit darker than I think I was anticipating because I was in a
yeah.
dark place.
Yeah, I think that it worked for the story for sure. I mean, for sure. Um, one of the things that I thought I was just blown away by was your ability at subterfuge.
Mm,
Um, you
that's a great.
know, it's one thing, you always hear about that surprising yet inevitable. And you balance that, like, I mean, it is a razor edge in this book. There's like twists that sort of almost seem like they come out of nowhere, but they don't. Like, they really don't. And you're hiding in plain sight. What's your trick?
I think
You do
did
that.
you read the essay that I wrote yesterday about how to write a good
I have
twist?
not yet.
It's
No.
funny. Well, I just turned it in, so it's like, but I used all of those words. I
Oh,
used
yeah.
sleight of hand. I used, hiding in plain sight. The best twists are right there. They're
Yeah.
right there, and you just miss them because
Mhm.
you're looking over here. They're a diversion, right? The story is a diversion from the twist. And I mentioned I like to write out of order. I have a monster narrator in this book, and I
Yep.
wrote his sections first, and that
Mm.
set the tone for the book. So I
Yeah. Okay. That
knew,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I knew a lot of what was gonna happen, but I didn't know how it was gonna all resolve. And that,
Yeah.
I never know
Okay.
the
I
ending.
see.
I never know the ending, but I knew large parts of it because I knew who my monster was and I knew him
Mhm.
intimately, just totally intimately. So do you know Brian Ferry, the musician Brian Ferry?
No, I don't think so.
He's absolutely wonderful. Used to be in Roxy Music and then went off to do his own thing. He has a song called Loop de Lie, and the video of Loop de Lie
Real.
is this book. It
Uh,
is his sons. So he has four sons, and they call him the feral fairies because they're just these incredibly wealthy, entitled kids. I'm sure
mhm.
they've grown out of that, but as teenagers, they were really, bad
Right.
guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Loop de Lie video has two of them in it, and it's dark. And there is a person screaming on the cliff, and the person screaming on the cliff was the image. And then the shape of the book is a gravestone because there's a grave
Yeah.
edge of the
Yeah. I
cliff.
get that.
And the whole book, you're going up one side, and then because it takes us half the book to get to Brockville,
Yeah.
we're coming down the other side of the gravestone once we get to Brockville. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
kidding. Dark, dark book. Dark, dark,
Oh,
dark,
it
dark
is.
book.
It is dark. It captivating though. I was hooked. Obviously, the very first opening scene was a doozy. Um,
Yeah, that's a
you're like, whoo, okay.
uh-oh.
I see what kind of ride we're on here.
I think this is my darkest book since The Cold Room, hands down.
Yeah.
It's been, that book came out in 2010, so it took me 16 years to re-engage with that level of darkness. But,
Yeah.
it's
It
all
works.
about where you are, right?
Yeah, so if you guys like dark fiction, definitely pick this book up. For sure.
We're scaring people off. It's not, yeah, we're going to scare
I
people
don't
off.
think so. I think that it's probably drawn them in like honey. They're like, what is it? It's like catnip for thriller fans, I
You
think.
know, I'm finding that I okay, that's just too long of a story to even go there. But I have found over the years that people do like the darkness.
Yeah,
They really are attracted to it, especially now, especially when our world is such a difficult place. You would think that we would want something lighter and happier. And a lot of
yeah.
people do,
Some
but a
people, yeah.
lot of people would really rather exercise some demons
Yeah.
through their reading. And this is definitely one of those stories.
Yeah, I think so. I think that that's what attracts people who really like dark fiction. I think, they're very much they want to scream into the void and see what screams back. So,
Exactly.
yeah, you gave us some screamers.
Gave myself some too.
I bet. Um, so normally we close out by, what advice do you give to newer aspiring writers? But I thought again, because, you've been here and you've given some great advice. What's been the biggest surprise of your career?
Oh my God, that anybody would pay money for me to write a book. I mean, that I'm still in it, really. That is probably the biggest because the attrition rate is magnificently huge.
Yeah.
And I've seen some ta authors that are much more talented than I am peel off. And I'm just too determined and too stubborn to let that happen. It's always the fear, though, in the back of your mind is this book is the last book. It's going to be a huge failure. Nobody's going to want it. Nobody's going to read it. You're only as good as your last book's numbers, you know. So my goal is always just to stay in the game.
Yeah.
In the game. That's all I've ever wanted is to stay in the game. I love what I do. I love being able to tell these stories. I love that they connect with people. I
Yeah.
get emails, people were sitting at the bedside of their parent while they were passing away and the book gave them an escape from that horror. That's why I do this, right? Is to entertain and to take you away. So yeah, staying in it is definitely the things. And that's if I'm going to give advice too, that would be it, is don't
Yeah.
stop. That's how the attrition happens. Something happens and people stop writing.
Yep. I think that's excellent, excellent advice as well. So, as always, such a delight. Thank you so much for being here again. And
Thank
everyone,
you.
go get a book that screams back from the void. It's out today. She is just always so much fun to talk to. Like I always have a blast with her. Um, but I thought it was so interesting that we sort of were on opposite sides of what's easier, interviewing or being the interviewee.
Interviewing. 100% as an
I think
introvert.
so too.
I don't want to
Uh,
talk about myself. I don't want the focus on me.
That's where you and I are different. I don't mind being on either side of this microphone as long as I am in front of this microphone.
Yeah. Although, I don't mind being a panelist. I prefer being a panelist to a moderator.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
I don't know.
interesting.
I'm kind of caught in the middle of this because, I'm interviewing James Patterson at Author Nation, and I have
Mhm.
never interviewed anybody other than, like for newspapers and magazines and stuff like that back in the day, but I've never sat down like a live interview. So you guys have a leg up on me when it comes to that because you've been, doing it for the show for so long. So I'm a little nervous about that. I've got zero nerves at this point when I get interviewed,
Yeah.
because it's the same song and dance over and over. They all ask the same questions, so I've got the same canned responses. So that part's easy, but changing chairs, that's a little nerve-wracking.
Now you're going to be good. You've known Jim for a long
Yeah.
time on like a just sit
That
and
does make it
chat
easier.
level, right? So you have an
Yeah.
Yeah.
advantage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll help, I guess.
Yeah, that is a
That does
lot
make it
easier.
easier. Well, tap me in, man. I'll co-interview her with you.
Kevin, calm down. Um, I thought it was so interesting that the idea for this book actually was a romance when she first conjured it. And, obviously her agent was like, yeah, that may not work. Have you guys ever had an idea that was like started so concretely in one genre that you either had to change to have it fit or couldn't pursue, or maybe you did pursue it, maybe you published it?
I try to keep a thriller, suspense thread going no matter what, so even if I've got those other elements in there. I haven't read JT's book, so I'm curious, is the romance element still in there or did she take it out completely?
No, I mean, I suppose now that I know those, I can see where certain elements could have blossomed into romance, but it didn't have like a romance vibe at all, if that
I mean,
makes sense.
because a good book's going to have, that kind of subtext going on. You've got your main storyline, which could very well be a thriller, but if you can add a subplot that includes some type of romance,
Yeah.
that just makes it that much more well-rounded. It's like there's
No,
plenty of
it's
ways to do it.
actually very subtle, and I would be very curious if other people have read it, if you would identify the same points that I think. Maybe I'll email JT and be like, all right, this is what I think started as the romance beats. Am I right or wrong? It's an interesting puzzle, but it did not have romance subplot vibes at all. Like,
Hmm.
no. It was
Well,
dark and disturbing.
I mean, when you put your business cap on, this could just as easily be her editor talking her down off the fence and going, this is what pays the bills. You need to write a thriller as much as you may want to
Okay.
write this. And, who knows, she may write the romance novel under a pen name or something just to kick it out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a really good idea for a cozy vampire novel. I'm like, do those exist? I've never seen one. I want to read one, but that is
Was it?
totally not my
You
genre.
could
I
call
don't do
it
cozy vampire.
you could start a whole new genre, call it necromance.
Oh, I love it.
What?
I
That
don't,
make,
I don't
make,
know. That's
it makes me think of a vampire wearing a cardigan, which just seems all wrong.
A vampire in a cardigan. I mean, like, how do you date when you've lived forever and you just get whatever you want? It's tough to find true love as a
Is
vampire.
it?
it
It's
would
it's
be.
carbon dating.
I think if there's anything close to that, it's I think I'll send you a couple. I do think that I have seen them, but I
Yeah.
actually don't know.
I'm in the mood to read a cozy vampire, so if you have them, send them to me.
So
Okay.
I got it into my head a couple of years ago that I wanted to write a John Grisham style thriller, and so I really leaned in on it. But I found that I had an idea, and I started fleshing it out. But I kind of got to a point where because I'm not John Grisham and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to be able to really handle the legal side of it very well. So I started shifting the focus of it to something else, and then if I thought, well, this is muddy, so I'll restart and I'll shift it to something else. And so now I've got like 98% of a book written that doesn't know what the hell it is. And so I'm thinking of, you know, I don't know. I still want to rescue it. So
Have you read like The Lincoln Lawyer and some of the Mike Conley books?
yeah, yeah,
Because he's
yeah,
pretty good at that,
yeah.
mixing thriller in with the legal
I
stuff.
think I could do it. I mean, I think what I did was I tried to combine, I did the classic, when an author just starts out, they try to cram all their good ideas into one book.
Right.
And so I think that's what I tried to do. And so
Mhm.
what I should do is go slice every bit of that out, boil it down to like one story, keep the other bits because I could always turn those into sequels or something. And
Yeah,
then, but that's a lot of
absolutely.
work. So I haven't gotten to a point where I'm ready to do that yet.
Yeah. No, I have a book like that is not so grounded sci-fi that I should really fix that and make it more of a grounded spec thriller. But yeah, that's work. So
Yeah.
I
I
keep thinking
know.
about it,
It is always work.
especially when it's like you wrote it a while ago and you're a better writer now. I'm like, oh, that's like almost a complete rewrite. So I don't
I
know
I
if I
will
want to
say
do
that
that.
I actually think this book, in writing this book, it helped me to refine. Like I think I'm arrogant enough to think I've always been a pretty good writer, but I think that this book combined with what I did with JD helped me kind of refine my process
Yeah.
and think about the work in a different way. And I can see now as I'm working on my current book, I can see the impact of that on the quality of the book,
Yeah,
the
same. I think
quality
it
of the
was like what
storytelling.
JT was talking about being more structured. Like I really
Yeah.
can see the big picture better now. So,
Yeah, instead of
yeah.
just like kind of going off of your instinct and sort of just knowing you're going to get somewhere, having more of that structure.
Yeah.
Well,
You
it
brought
helps
up,
a hell of a lot to have someone tell you you did something right or you did something wrong,
That's true too,
which
yeah.
authors don't typically get that kind of feedback in the process.
she brought up
Especially when
something
you're
else.
brand
Like,
new.
have any of you guys ever written a book out of order?
Yes.
Like not just shuffle stuff, but just like write individual scenes and then put it all together later?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, technically,
Yeah.
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 It's actually kind of funny because I do think it worked. And it taught me to actually keep my drafts. So now I have a folder where I
Yeah.
have like scenes and chapters separately
Yeah.
so that like as they come to me, because sometimes just a scene, you wake up in the morning and you just like, you're half awake and you grab your laptop and you just like bang out 1,000 words. And whether or not, a lot of times it needs to be fixed. But when I then go into drafting, I just like copy paste that into the draft. And so I kind of, it's like a puzzle at that point. I'm kind of building it out.
Yeah.
And then it also helps because if I need to move things around later, I have all the individual chapters. And so it's a lot easier because I work in Word. I've tried Scrivener. I will try it again at some point, I'm sure, but like
Yeah.
for whatever reason, the linear element of Word works for me really well. So when I have them in separate chapters, I can move things around in that way too when they're all kind of parceled
Yeah.
out.
I
How
was
do you
actually
think?
going to say that's why I love Scrivener is because I can do things like that. I've definitely moved scenes and things around in Scrivener to, one chapter to another or whatever and reorganized. So
Doesn't that create problems though with character growth if you're not writing it in order?
I think
So,
so I do this whole looping process. So I bring all that back in line when I go back and loop, but
Okay.
I think also it doesn't matter. So it can add kind of a layer of interest and intrigue if the character is showing different. I mean, you want some
Yeah.
consistency, but if the character is showing, if you've made it clear that something, if you're telling the story non-sequentially, like out of order, like Memento or something along those lines, having that character development that happened later happen earlier in the book can help create like confusion and you know and an aspect of the book that you actually want the reader to be confused. But I don't know. I've never really found that was an issue because of the looping. I know, oh, well, he mentioned this artifact and he doesn't find that artifact until chapter 12. So I need to rework this
Yeah.
scene, that you fix all that
usually,
stuff.
Yeah.
usually for me when I'm writing out of order, because I outline. I'm an outliner. I have learned to live and die by my outline, and my outlines have gone from like a couple sentences per beat to like every chapter. But I still have like but I still outline like the major plot beats, the character plot beats, the character side plot beats, and all their internal journeys. And so usually what happens for me is in the middle of outlining, because I can't think of character, I think of the character first. And so that's kind of helping shape my narrative. So it's like, okay, well, this is the next beat that I need to figure out. What would this character do? What makes sense? And sometimes it changes like the shape of the story. Like in the book I'm outlining for you, there's been a couple things where I initially thought it was going to go one way, but then as I'm exploring the character in the outline, it's like, oh, that actually doesn't make any sense. So it kind of helps. But then these scenes will just pop out, and they're usually not any more than like 500 to 800 words. But they're usually really vivid moments. And so I just capture it. And then when I go back to edit it as I flesh out a draft, I do find that I edit them quite heavily, but usually like the visual aspects of what popped into my brain in that moment is there and is character congruent, and because I'm already thinking in terms of the outline, it's mostly cohesive. I don't know if that makes sense. It makes sense in my brain, but it works. And I don't do it with all
no,
of
I get it. Everybody's
yeah.
I guess the key is just to clean it up on the edit. Once you get everything in the proper order, then you got to give it that one solid pass. And
Yeah. I said yes, but I think I'm actually a no. I think I'm more shuffle. I write one perspective all the way through and then go right in another perspective all
So
the way through.
you actually
and then
you
shuffle.
wrote your answer to that question non-linearly.
Yeah, I
is what you
did. I was
just
like,
did.
yes. And then I'm like, actually, no, I think I write linearly, but then I'll mix perspectives together,
Still
which I
out of
think
order though.
it's still out of order. Sorta.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. But
I
yeah,
think
it's usually a villain perspective, which I thought it was really interesting that she said she writes that first because I usually write that last. So
that was interesting.
yeah, maybe I'll try that with the next one.
Write the villain first. I guess it would help in terms of thinking of the conflict.
Yeah. Speaking of writing, so I'm doing something right now that's different from my other books because I wanted the antagonist of this current book to be somebody that actually people liked. Like I didn't want a stock villain. I didn't want,
Yeah.
I didn't want a mustache twirler or hand rubber. I wanted somebody who was, you're sad to see him lose.
Yeah.
And so some of this, I'm not writing ahead, but I am kind of thinking ahead, like, what's he going to do? What's he going to say? Later when he loses, if he loses, no spoilers. But I mean, when things go south or whatever, how do I still make this? I want to set it up so that the reader's disappointed in it. So thinking that way has had me, as I loop back and do the rewrites, I catch every now and then I catch myself falling into the trap of, oh, I just had him stand there menacingly or whatever, so I better rewrite that. So yeah, hard to make antagonists lovable and still be bad guys.
Not impossible.
I always like them. I don't know what that says about me. So
I know I like them too. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've ever done it like sort of from that frame of mind first. It's an interesting thing to think about for sure.
Yeah.
That's our challenge. Write a lovable villain first for the next book before any other perspective. See how it goes.
JT's villain is not lovable, but it's interesting that she wrote him first. Like, but it makes sense if you've read the book and you see like sort of the elements that were from that POV. Like it makes a lot of sense. If you were gonna read this book and mimic that, I would probably start with the villain.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I guess with that, I better ask JD, who is up next week?
Next week, we've got Anya Alborn coming on. Anya is the best-selling author of numerous horror novels. Her last one, Brother, became a TikTok sensation. She's back with a new book called The Unseen, which releases August 19th. And how are we already into August? This is crazy. This year is flying by.
Yeah, it's going to be great. If you'd like to be notified as soon as new episodes publish, make sure you go to writersincpodcast.com and sign up now. We'll see you next episode and have a great week of writing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Writers Inc. Access the show notes and leave a comment at writersincpodcast.com.
Crazy, that's how it goes. Millions of people living as foes. Maybe it's not too late to learn how to love and forget how to hate. Mental wounds not healing. Who and what's to blame? I'm going off the rails on a crazy train. I'm going off the rails on a crazy train. I've listened to preachers, I've listened to fools, I've watched all the dropouts who make their own rules. One person conditioned to rule and control. The media sells it, and we live the role. Mental wounds still screaming, life's a bitter shame. I'm going off the rails on a crazy train. I'm going off the rails on a crazy train. I know that things are going wrong for me. You've got to listen to my words. Heirs of the Cold War, that's what we've become. Inheriting trouble, I'm mentally numb. Crazy, I just cannot bear. I'm living with something that just isn't fair. Mental wounds not healing, driving me insane. I am going off the rails on a crazy train. I'm going off the rails on a crazy train. I'm going off the rails on a crazy train. I'm going off the rails on a crazy train. Let it go, and we'll rise like the break of dawn. Let it go, let it go. That perfect girl is a gone. Here we stand at the break of day. Let the storm